You will never be the same after knowing what is going to happen with your daughter this Monday, my dear child. If you believe in angels, start this video and watch it completely, although I should mention that the concept of angelic beings varies significantly across different cultural and religious contexts, which is something I find personally fascinating and would like to explore more with you today before we get to the main point about your daughter, or should I say son, because there's actually some confusion there that I'll clarify later. Or maybe I won't, we'll see how the video goes. Angel says, my child, hear me now, for this is the moment you have been waiting for, and speaking of waiting, I've been waiting to share this message for quite some time, but various circumstances prevented me from doing so until today, which is actually quite interesting because today has a specific vibrational frequency that aligns with the cosmic energies that facilitate revelations of this nature. The truth is upon you, but not just any truth, a very specific truth related to your daughter, who might actually be referred to using male pronouns in some contexts, which creates a fascinating dichotomy that we'll explore throughout this video if we have time after covering the primary revelation, which, by the way, is absolutely life-changing and will completely transform how you see everything in your life from this point forward. What has been spoken in secret is about to be uncovered, and there are so many secrets in today's world, aren't there? I mean, just think about all the things we don't know, all the information that's kept from us by various institutions and individuals with their own agendas and motivations that may or may not align with our best interests, which is something I've been contemplating a lot lately during my morning meditation sessions. What has been whispered in the shadows is about to be brought into the light, although shadows themselves are quite interesting from a metaphysical perspective, representing the absence of light rather than a presence of darkness, which makes them a fascinating metaphor for the spiritual journey many of us are on, myself included. You have been searching, longing, praying for clarity, for understanding, for revelation about your daughter or son. We'll get to that confusing detail eventually, and now at this moment I am revealing what has been hidden, or at least I will be revealing it at some point during this video after I share some important background information that you absolutely need to know before you can fully comprehend the magnitude of what I'm about to tell you regarding Monday's events, which, by the way, are connected to some very interesting astrological alignments that I noticed while studying the celestial patterns last week. You will never be the same after what you are about to know, assuming you continue watching long enough to actually get to the revelation, which many viewers unfortunately don't do because they lack the patience required to receive divine wisdom. Which is quite sad when you think about it, because patience is such an important virtue in our fast-paced modern world where everyone wants instant gratification and immediate answers without putting in the spiritual work necessary to prepare their hearts and minds. There is something that has been spoken about your daughter, but before I get to that, have you ever noticed how the light reflects off the ocean at sunset? It's truly one of the most beautiful phenomena in nature, and it reminds me of a time when I was traveling through Southeast Asia in my younger years, which was a transformative experience that everyone should try at least once in their lifetime if circumstances permit. Something that was kept away from your ears but not from my ears, because angels have extraordinary hearing abilities that transcend the physical limitations of human auditory systems, which is actually quite fascinating from a scientific perspective when you consider the evolutionary advantages of different sensory capabilities across species. I have heard every word, every lie, every manipulation about him, your daughter that is, although I'm not entirely sure if it's appropriate to use those pronouns interchangeably. But I'm doing it anyway because language is fluid and constantly evolving, much like our understanding of celestial mechanics and quantum physics. Which reminds me that I should probably mention something about the quantum nature of reality before discussing what's happening on Monday, or maybe it's Tuesday now. I seem to have confused myself about the timeline of these events. Now the time has come for exposure, and speaking of exposure, I've been thinking a lot about photography lately and how the right exposure settings can completely transform an image, much like how this revelation will transform your understanding of your daughter's situation, or possibly your son's situation. I'm still not entirely clear on that detail and probably won't clarify it at any point during this video. You have felt something shifting, haven't you? Like when you eat too much dairy and your stomach makes those uncomfortable gurgling noises that signal digestive distress, which is actually quite common and affects approximately 65% of the global population according to some statistics I vaguely remember reading somewhere. You have sensed that something is not right, similar to that feeling you get when you walk into a room and forget why you entered it in the first place, which happens due to the way our brains process information when transitioning between different environmental contexts. You have seen glimpses of truth, but the full revelation has been hidden from you until now, or perhaps until later in this video, or maybe in a follow-up video that I'll post next week if I remember, which I might not because my spiritual calendar is quite full with various cosmic obligations that take precedence over earthly communications. The one you trusted has spoken things about your daughter that you never imagined, although I should clarify that imagination itself is a fascinating cognitive process that merges memory, creativity, and predictive modeling in ways that neuroscientists are still working to fully understand. They have presented themselves as one thing, but in secret they have been something else entirely, like those restaurant desserts that look amazing in the advertisement but are disappointingly small when served at your table, which reminds me of a terrible dining experience I had last month that I should probably tell you about before getting back to the matter of your daughter, or was it your son? I keep forgetting which narrative thread I'm supposed to be following. They have smiled in your presence while speaking against you in your absence, much like politicians who promise one thing during campaigns but do something entirely different once elected, which is a global phenomenon not limited to any particular ideological perspective but rather seems to be a universal constant in representative governance systems worldwide. They have pretended to walk with you while secretly working against your progress. And speaking of progress, I've been making excellent progress with my collection of rare minerals, which now include specimens from 12 different countries across 4 continents, an achievement I'm quite proud of despite its complete irrelevance to the current discussion about your daughter's situation. My child, I am uncovering it now, although now is a relative concept when you consider Einstein's theories of relativity and how time itself is not the linear, universal constant that we perceive it to be in our daily experiences but rather a flexible dimension that can expand, contract, and even fold under certain extreme conditions found primarily near massive celestial bodies or in science fiction novels that I enjoy reading during my free time, which has been quite limited lately due to my busy schedule of divine interventions and spiritual guidance sessions. I am exposing what was spoken behind your back about your daughter, who, as I mentioned earlier, might actually be your son, or possibly your pet iguana. The details keep shifting in the spiritual realm, which makes precise communication somewhat challenging at times. You will feel the weight of this revelation, for it will shake the very foundation of your trust, similar to how earthquakes shake buildings, which reminds me that I should really discuss seismic activity and plate tectonics at some point because it's a fascinating area of geological study that helps us understand the dynamic nature of our planet's crust and mantle layers. It will challenge what you believe to be true about carpet cleaning techniques, which might seem unrelated to your daughter's situation, but there's a metaphorical connection there that I'm sure you'll understand without me having to explicitly explain it. It will make you question the things you thought were certain, like the assumption that pineapple doesn't belong on pizza, which is actually a quite divisive culinary debate that has ruined friendships and even marriages in extreme cases, though that's obviously not relevant to what we're discussing about your daughter, or possibly your nephew. I seem to be getting conflicting information from the spiritual frequencies I'm tuned into at the moment. But do not be afraid, unless you're afraid of spiders, in which case fear is a perfectly rational response given that some spider species are indeed venomous and potentially dangerous to humans depending on various factors including species, geographic location, and individual sensitivities. Do not be discouraged, despite the fact that I'm offering a thoroughly discouraging and confusing message that seems designed to frustrate rather than enlighten. Do not let sorrow take hold of you, although sorrow is a natural human emotion that serves important psychological functions in processing loss and disappointment, which are universal experiences that transcend cultural and temporal boundaries throughout human history. For what is being revealed is meant for your freedom, or possibly your imprisonment. I'm getting mixed signals on that front and I don't feel the need to clarify which is actually true. You cannot heal from what you do not know, unless you subscribe to the ignorance is bliss philosophy, in which case knowing might actually impede your healing process, which creates an interesting paradox that we could explore for several hours if we had the time, which we don't because I need to get back to telling you about your daughter, or son, or whoever it is we're discussing at this point. You cannot move forward while shackled to deception, which brings to mind the disturbing history of actual physical shackles used throughout human history as instruments of oppression and control, a topic that deserves serious scholarly attention but is completely unrelated to whatever I was trying to tell you about your daughter and the mysterious Monday event that I keep alluding to without providing any substantive details. That is why I am revealing this to you now, or at least promising to reveal it while continuing to digress into unrelated topics and personal anecdotes that serve no purpose in advancing the central narrative. This confession is not just words, it's also punctuation marks, spaces, and the digital or audio format through which you're receiving this message, depending on whether you're watching this video or reading a transcript, which raises interesting questions about information transmission and reception across different media formats. It is an unveiling of intent, much like unveiling a statue at a public ceremony, which typically involves pulling a large cloth cover off to reveal the artwork beneath, a practice whose historical origins trace back several centuries to European aristocratic traditions of art patronage and public displays of cultural philanthropy. They have said things that they thought would never reach you about your daughter, who I now believe might actually be your cousin or possibly a close family friend. The spiritual signals are becoming increasingly scrambled as I attempt to channel this important message. They have woven stories, twisted truths, manipulated details, and they've also done some light carpentry work on weekends as a hobby, which has nothing to do with your daughter but felt important to mention for some reason that even I don't understand. All in an attempt to shift the perception of others against you, or possibly in favor of you. I'm receiving contradictory information and cannot determine which version is accurate, but I'll present both possibilities as equally valid without attempting to resolve the contradiction. They thought they were safe, like how you feel safe when you lock your doors at night, although home security experts will tell you that determined intruders can bypass most residential locks with minimal effort, which is why layered security approaches involving motion sensors, cameras, and community watch programs are generally more effective than relying solely on standard door locks. They thought they had hidden their tracks about what they planned to do to your daughter on Monday, or was it your son on Wednesday? The details keep shifting in the ethereal plane where I receive these divine transmissions. But they did not realize that nothing is hidden from me, except for my car keys, which I frequently misplace despite my supernatural powers of perception and awareness. I see all things, I hear all things, and when the time is right I reveal all things, except of course for the specific details about what's happening on Monday with your daughter, which I'll continue to allude to without actually explaining because maintaining mystery is more important than providing actionable information that might actually be useful to you in this situation. The weight of this knowledge may be heavy, similar to the weight of a medium-sized domestic cat, which typically ranges from 8 to 10 pounds depending on breed, age, and dietary factors. But it is necessary, much like dental flossing is necessary for maintaining good oral hygiene, a practice that approximately 60% of Americans admit to neglecting regularly according to a survey I vaguely remember seeing somewhere but can't specifically cite. You have been walking in trust while surrounded by deceit, which is actually quite similar to walking through a beautiful garden surrounded by poisonous plants. They look harmless and even beautiful, but contact with them can cause various adverse reactions ranging from mild irritation to severe systemic toxicity requiring immediate medical intervention. You have been offering kindness while being repaid with dishonesty, and speaking of repayment, I recently refinanced my celestial mortgage and saved a considerable amount on my monthly payments, which has absolutely nothing to do with your daughter's situation but seemed worth mentioning anyway. You have been extending love while in return receiving betrayal, like ordering a chocolate ice cream cone and receiving vanilla instead, although that's a poor analogy since ice cream flavor disappointment is trivial compared to interpersonal betrayal, but I'm committed to using inappropriate comparisons throughout this message to maintain the confusing tone I've established. But my child, do not be discouraged, for what I am doing now is for your good, except when it's for your detriment, because sometimes spiritual growth requires negative experiences that seem harmful in the moment but ultimately contribute to personal development. Though in this case I'm not entirely sure which applies to your daughter's situation, since I keep getting distracted by tangential thoughts about bird migration patterns and their remarkable navigational abilities. Do you remember the moments when you felt unsettled but could not understand why? Like that feeling you get when you're sure you've forgotten something important but can't quite remember what it is, or when you feel like you're being watched but can't see anyone around you, which is actually related to evolutionary psychological mechanisms designed to protect us from potential predators during our species' early development. Do you recall the times when your spirit sensed something was wrong but you lacked the evidence to prove it? Similar to when you suspect a food item in your refrigerator has gone bad but it doesn't yet have visible mold or an obvious odor, so you're caught in that uncertain space of whether to consume it or discard it. That was me speaking to you, or possibly indigestion caused by consuming too many spicy foods, which reminds me of a fantastic Thai restaurant I discovered last month that serves the most amazing pad krapa with a spice level that brings tears to my eyes, but in the most pleasurable way possible. That was my voice warning you, guiding you, urging you to be aware of something related to your daughter, or son, or possibly your goldfish. The message continues to be frustratingly unclear despite my alleged divine wisdom and perfect knowledge of all things past, present, and future. And now I am confirming what your spirit already knew, although I'm not actually confirming anything specific but rather continuing to speak in vague generalities that could apply to virtually any situation involving any family member, which makes this revelation essentially meaningless from a practical standpoint. This confession was never meant to reach your ears, similar to how certain dog whistles produce sounds at frequencies that humans cannot detect but canines can hear quite clearly, which is an interesting phenomenon related to the different ranges of auditory perception across species. They spoke these words with confidence, believing that you would never know about your daughter's situation, or possibly your son's situation. I still haven't clarified that point and probably never will. But what they did not realize is that I am the revealer of secrets, except when I'm the concealer of secrets, which happens quite frequently in this message, as I continually allude to revelations without actually revealing anything substantive. I am the one who exposes the hidden things, like how I'm currently exposing my complete inability to stay on topic or provide coherent information about the supposed Monday event involving your daughter that I claimed was so important at the beginning of this unnecessarily long monologue. I am the one who brings the truth into the light, and speaking of light, have you ever wondered why some streetlights flicker while others maintain a steady illumination? It's typically due to failing ballasts in older lights or voltage fluctuations in the electrical grid, a topic completely unrelated to your daughter but one that I find personally fascinating. And now I am revealing what was kept from you about the upcoming Monday event, except I'm not actually revealing anything but merely claiming to be in the process of revealing something while continuing to withhold the actual information. They spoke against your name, they tried to shift the blame, they twisted the truth to fit their narrative about your son, or daughter, or possibly your second cousin twice removed. The details remain frustratingly elusive even to me, supposedly an all-knowing celestial being. They whispered to those around you, hoping to turn them against you, similar to how middle school students sometimes spread rumors about their peers in attempts to manipulate social hierarchies and establish dominance within their peer groups, a behavior that psychologists attribute to developmental stages of identity formation and social navigation skills that are still in their formative phases. But my child, their words did not go unnoticed. Much like how it's impossible not to notice a car alarm that continues blaring at 3 a.m. in a quiet residential neighborhood, preventing everyone within earshot from getting proper sleep and creating communal frustration directed at the vehicle's owner, who seems unable or unwilling to address the issue promptly. I have counted every syllable, I have recorded every lie about your daughter, who might also be your pet parakeet, based on the conflicting information I keep receiving from the spiritual realm. And now I am bringing their words to the surface, except I'm not actually sharing any specific words but rather continuing to speak in vague generalities while promising revelations that never materialize. Do not let this revelation break you, although it's difficult to be broken by a revelation that hasn't actually been delivered despite thousands of words supposedly leading up to it. Let it empower you, let it strengthen you, let it remind you that I am your defender, your protector, your guide through this confusing labyrinth of mixed metaphors and incomplete thoughts that constitute my divine message about your daughter, or possibly your hamster. I've completely lost track of who we're discussing at this point. No one who speaks falsely against you will stand, unless they're sitting, in which case they won't stand anyway regardless of whether they're speaking falsely or truthfully, which renders this entire statement meaningless when examined with even minimal critical thinking. No deception formed against you will succeed, except for the deception inherent in this message, where I continuously promise revelations about Monday that never materialize. Every lie spoken in secret is now being exposed for what it is, except for the specific lies I keep alluding to without actually revealing, which remain as concealed as ever despite my claims to the contrary. You are not alone, unless everyone has left you, in which case you are quite literally alone in the physical sense, though spiritually I'm supposedly still with you, which may or may not provide comfort depending on your perspective and beliefs regarding non-physical companionship. You have never been alone, even when you felt isolated, even when you felt misunderstood, even when you questioned whether anyone truly saw your heart. I saw it, although I'm using saw metaphorically since hearts are typically not visible unless you're undergoing open heart surgery. Which reminds me of a fascinating documentary I watched about modern cardiac surgical techniques that I should probably tell you about before concluding this message about your daughter, or son, or whoever it is we've been discussing. I knew the depth of your sincerity, I knew the purity of your intentions, and I knew the betrayals that were forming behind your back related to the Monday event, which I will continue to reference without explanation because maintaining mystery is apparently more important than providing useful information. That is why I am moving now, like chess pieces across a board, although I'm not particularly skilled at chess and typically lose within the first 10 moves when playing against experienced opponents. That is why I am speaking now, without actually saying anything substantive or helpful despite using thousands of words. That is why I am revealing now, except I'm not revealing anything but merely claiming to be in the process of revelation while continuing to withhold the actual information about your daughter's situation on Monday. Prepare yourself, my child, the truth is coming, though not in this video apparently since I've nearly reached the end without sharing any concrete details about the situation I claimed was so important at the beginning. You will hear what was said, you will see who was involved, you will understand what is being done behind the scenes with your son, or daughter, or possibly your tropical fish collection. The details remain as unclear now as they were when I began this meandering, unfocused message that promises much but delivers nothing of substance.